1 in every 3 people over the age of 40 is walking around right now with cholesterol plaques silently building inside their arteries. No pain, no warning signal, no alarm going off. Just a slow, steady narrowing, year after year. Until one day the person collapses from a heart attack or a stroke and everyone calls it sudden. It was not sudden. That process had been running for decades. And here's the part that will stop you cold. You can slow it down, and in some cases, push back against it with 5 foods you can buy at any grocery store for under $2 each. Not supplements, not prescriptions, food. Backed by actual clinical research, not advertising copy. Your next doctor's appointment will not cover any of this. The system makes more money managing your disease than preventing it. Subscribe to Dr. Waterling and hit like. We are building toward 1,000 subscribers, one honest video at a time. Before we get to the 5 grains, you need to understand what is actually happening inside your vessels. Because if you understand the mechanism, you are not just eating breakfast. You are making a deliberate medical decision, and that matters. Cholesterol is not poison. Let me say that again clearly because the medical marketing of the last 30 years has done serious damage to that concept. Cholesterol is a fat-like substance your body cannot live without. Every single cell membrane in your body, the outer shell of every cell, is built partly from cholesterol. Your sex hormones, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, are synthesized from cholesterol. Your adrenal glands, which govern your entire stress response, depend on it. Your liver uses cholesterol to make bile, a digestive fluid without which you cannot break down fats. Your body also uses cholesterol to produce vitamin D. Cholesterol is a construction material. It is not the enemy. So what is the real problem? The problem is not the presence of cholesterol. The problem is the conditions under which cholesterol starts depositing on artery walls. And this is the part that most doctors do not explain, even during a paid appointment. Cholesterol does not simply stick to healthy blood vessel walls. It responds to injury. The inner lining of your arteries is called the endothelium, a single cell thick layer that acts as the interface between your blood and your vessel wall. When that lining gets a micro injury, immune cells rush to the site. Cholesterol follows, acting as a kind of biological spackle, the body trying to seal the breach. And that is exactly where an atherosclerotic plaque begins to form. Atherosclerosis, that is the medical term for hardening and narrowing of the arteries, is not just fat stuck in a pipe. It is a chronic inflammatory disease in which cholesterol plays a role, but inflammation is the original trigger. What damages the endothelium in the first place? 3 main things. Number 1, chronic inflammation. This can come from untreated infections, autoimmune conditions, long-term smoking, or persistent psychological stress. Number 2, elevated blood glucose, meaning high blood sugar. Sugar molecules physically scratch the inner lining of vessels. This is one of the core reasons why people with diabetes develop atherosclerosis several times faster than the general population. The damage runs faster when sugar is constantly elevated. Number 3, a diet chronically low in antioxidants and fiber. And this is exactly where whole grains become a direct clinical tool. Whole grain cereals contain soluble fiber. Soluble fiber, this is the type that dissolves in water, does not get digested in the small intestine. Instead, it absorbs water and transforms into a viscous gel-like mass. That gel physically traps cholesterol molecules inside the intestinal lumen, the hollow space of the gut, and prevents them from being absorbed into the bloodstream. They get cleared out through your stool naturally without any drug. At the same time, this fiber feeds the beneficial bacteria living in your colon. A healthy gut microbiome, in turn, reduces systemic inflammation, the same inflammation that damages the endothelium in the first place. You are working the problem from 2 directions at once. On top of that, whole grains are dense with magnesium, potassium, B vitamins, and antioxidants, a full package of vascular support. And we are talking about food that costs less than any pill on the market. Let us go through each one. The first grain is buckwheat. In a lot of households, buckwheat gets cooked, but it gets cooked wrong. And by doing that, a significant portion of its benefit disappears. Let me start with the mechanism. The primary active compound in buckwheat is rutin. Rutin is a flavonoid. That means a plant-based, biologically active compound. Rutin does several specific things for your cardiovascular system. First, it strengthens the walls of capillaries, the smallest blood vessels in your body, and increases their elasticity. Rigid, fragile capillaries crack and tear easily. And remember, every crack in the endothelium is a potential plaque formation site. Research has shown that rutin from buckwheat suppresses cardiac hypertrophy, that is, the abnormal thickening of the heart muscle triggered by angiotensin II, which is a hormone that raises blood pressure and puts chronic strain on the heart. Second, rutin is a potent antioxidant. It neutralizes free radicals. Those are unstable, aggressive molecules that attack and oxidize LDL cholesterol. Oxidized LDL, bad cholesterol that has been chemically damaged, is dramatically more aggressive at embedding itself into vessel walls than non-oxidized LDL. Stopping the oxidation is almost as important as lowering the level. Studies on buckwheat consumption have shown it reduces a marker of fat oxidation called TBARS, thiobarbitric acid reactive substances, by nearly 30%. That is a measurable, meaningful reduction in the oxidative stress that accelerates plaque formation. Beyond rutin, buckwheat is rich in magnesium and potassium. Magnesium relaxes the smooth muscle tissue inside blood vessel walls, reduces their tone, and by doing so, lowers blood pressure. Potassium helps the kidneys excrete excess sodium, which also lowers pressure. Buckwheat is essentially natural combination support for anyone dealing with hypertension. I want to share a case from my practice. I had a 63-year-old patient. Hypertension, unstable blood pressure readings, poorly controlled even with medication, requiring repeated dose increases. I asked her to add buckwheat to her daily diet, prepared the specific way I'm about to describe. 2 months later, she came back for a follow-up. Her blood pressure had stabilized, and we were able to reduce her antihypertensive medication dose. That is not a story about a magic grain. That is what happens when nutrition starts working in the same direction as the treatment. Here's the recipe. Buckwheat soaked overnight in kefir. Kefir is a fermented dairy drink similar to drinkable yogurt. You can find it in most grocery stores near the yogurt section. Take 150 grams, that is roughly 3/4 of a cup, of whole grain buckwheat. Rinse it 3 times under cold water until the water runs clear. Pour in 250 grams, about 1 cup of low-fat kefir, 1 or 2% fat content. Add a pinch of salt and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Cover and refrigerate overnight, 8 to 10 hours. In the morning, it is ready. Soft, slightly tangy, genuinely filling. Why this method instead of boiling? Buckwheat's outer shell contains phytic acid, a compound that binds to minerals and blocks their absorption. Over the course of a night in kefir, that phytic acid breaks down. The result is that the magnesium and potassium from the buckwheat become significantly more bioavailable than they would be from a cooked version. Bioavailable means actually absorbed into your bloodstream, not just passing through. Additionally, buckwheat soaked in kefir is easier to digest, less strain on your gastrointestinal tract, which matters a great deal for anyone over 50. The cinnamon is not just flavoring. It contains polyphenols, plant compounds that increase cellular insulin sensitivity and blunt the rise in blood sugar after a meal. And as we established, stable blood sugar means fewer microinjuries to the endothelium. The second grain is oatmeal. This is the most extensively studied grain for cholesterol management in the scientific literature. Dozens of randomized controlled trials have looked at it. Randomized controlled trials are the gold standard level of evidence in medicine. Here is what they consistently show. The primary active compound in oats is beta-glucan. Beta-glucan is a soluble fiber with a unique molecular structure. When it reaches the intestine, it absorbs water and forms a dense, sticky gel. Think of it as a slow, expanding sponge that coats the intestinal walls. Cholesterol molecules present in that space become trapped in the gel and cannot be absorbed. They leave through your stool. But there is a second mechanism that is just as important. Your liver produces bile acids, the digestive chemicals it needs to break down dietary fat, largely using cholesterol as the raw material. Under normal circumstances, those bile acids get reabsorbed from the intestine and recycled. Beta-glucan binds bile acids too, preventing that recycling. Your liver then has to synthesize new bile acids, and it pulls more cholesterol from the bloodstream to do it. Both mechanisms drive your LDL, low-density lipoprotein, the bad cholesterol, downward simultaneously. A meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirmed confirmed the numbers. Consuming 3 or more grams of oat beta-glucan per day reduces LDL cholesterol by an average of 0.25 millimoles per liter and total cholesterol by 0.3 millimoles per liter. A separate clinical study found that drinking a beverage containing oat beta-glucan for 4 weeks reduced LDL by approximately 6% and reduced the calculated risk of a cardiovascular event by approximately 8%. One properly prepared serving of oatmeal delivers around 4 grams of beta-glucan. That is enough to trigger both mechanisms. Now here is the trap most people fall into. Those instant oatmeal packets you tear open and add boiling water to, those are not the same food medically. Industrial processing reduces the molecular weight of beta-glucan in quick-cook oats. It is high molecular weight beta-glucan that produces the strongest cholesterol-lowering effect. You need whole rolled oats, the kind that require at least 15 minutes of cooking. That is not a preference, it is clinically significant. Recipe: oatmeal with turmeric. Take 100 grams, about 1 cup of whole rolled oats, minimum 15-minute cooking time. Add 250 milliliters, about 1 cup of water. Cook over medium heat for 15 minutes, stirring slowly. Add 100 milliliters of milk, half a teaspoon of ground turmeric, a quarter teaspoon of ground ginger, and 2 or 3 pinches of black pepper. Cook for another 3 to 4 minutes. Remove from heat and stir in 1 teaspoon of flaxseed oil. Why does this combination outperform plain oatmeal? Turmeric contains curcumin, a compound with powerful anti-inflammatory properties. It blocks pro-inflammatory molecules in the vessel wall, including the specific signaling molecules that promote cholesterol adhesion to the endothelium. You are now working 2 mechanisms simultaneously, clearing cholesterol from the gut through beta-glucan and reducing inflammation in the vessel wall through curcumin. But here is the critical nuance that most people miss entirely. Curcumin on its own has terrible bioavailability. That means if you eat turmeric without anything else, almost none of the curcumin actually makes it into your bloodstream. It passes through largely unused. Black pepper contains a compound called piperine, which increases curcumin absorption by 20 times. Without the black pepper, the turmeric in your oatmeal is largely decorative. That is not an exaggeration. That is the biochemistry. The ginger improves peripheral circulation, the blood flow in your smaller vessels, and has its own independent anti-inflammatory mechanism. The flaxseed oil provides omega-3 fatty acids, which lower triglycerides, another type of blood fat, and reduce blood viscosity, meaning they help the blood flow more freely. The third grain is pearl barley's close relative, barley grits, sometimes called pearled barley or pot barley. Almost nobody talks about this one anymore. That is a genuine medical loss. In the Soviet clinical era, barley-based cereals were deliberately included in the dietary protocols for patients in cardiac wards. Not out of tradition, but because clinicians observed measurable results and built the evidence base around them. Barley grits are made from barley grain, the same grain used to make pearled barley, just ground more finely. And for beta-glucan content, barley matches oats head-to-head. 2 independent meta-analyses confirm that barley beta-glucan reduces LDL cholesterol by an average of 0.26 to 0.27 millimoles per liter at doses of 5 to 7 grams per day. That is a clinically significant reduction, comparable to what you get from a low-dose pharmaceutical intervention, but coming from your breakfast bowl. Where barley has an edge over oats is in its niacin content, that is vitamin B3. Niacin regulates lipid metabolism at the level of the liver. Specifically, it raises the level of HDL, high-density lipoprotein, commonly called good cholesterol. This matters enormously. HDL acts as a cholesterol shuttle. It picks up excess cholesterol from the walls of arteries and vessels and transports it back to the liver for processing and elimination. This process is called reverse cholesterol transport, and it is one of the body's primary built-in cardiovascular defense mechanisms. Barley combined with live culture yogurt is a double attack. You lower the bad from below and raise the good from above. Recipe: barley grits with yogurt and berries. Take 100 grams of thoroughly rinsed barley grits. Bring 300 milliliters, about 1¼ cups, of water to a boil. Reduce heat and cook for 20 minutes, stirring occasionally. Let the porridge cool to approximately 113 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, that is around 45 to 50 degrees Celsius, and stir in 100 milliliters of plain, unsweetened live culture yogurt. No added sugar, no flavoring, just live bacteria. Top with fresh or frozen berries, blueberries, raspberries, or strawberries. Add 1 teaspoon of honey for sweetness if needed. Why must you add the yogurt to cooled porridge? Probiotics, the live bacteria in yogurt, die at temperatures above about 122 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. If you stir yogurt into hot food, you kill the bacteria and eliminate the point of adding it. Those probiotics influence liver function through what researchers call the gut-liver axis. A healthy gut microbiome reduces cholesterol synthesis in the liver and stimulates its reuptake from the bloodstream. Blueberries add anthocyanins, pigment compounds that reduce the oxidation of LDL. Recall, it is oxidized LDL that is the most dangerous, the most prone to embedding in arterial walls and triggering inflammation. Adding blueberries to this bowl is not a culinary choice. It is a biochemical one. The fourth grain is millet. Millet got pushed out of most kitchens. Most people who remember it as bitter and unpleasant from childhood. The bitterness is real, but it is completely fixable with rinsing, and once you fix it, you have access to a grain with genuinely underappreciated vascular benefits. Millet contains lecithin. Lecithin is a phospholipid, a fat-like compound that forms part of every cell membrane. In the context of cardiovascular health, lecithin matters because it helps the liver process fats correctly and prevents hepatic fat accumulation. Fatty liver disease, medically called hepatic steatosis, is a condition in which fat builds up inside liver cells. When the liver is compromised by fat accumulation, it produces more LDL and less HDL. Lecithin from millet works to prevent that metabolic shift before it starts. The second important component in millet is silicon. Silicon participates in the synthesis of collagen and elastin, the structural proteins that give blood vessels their strength and flexibility. As we age, collagen production declines steadily, and vessels become increasingly rigid and brittle. Dietary silicon partially compensates for that deficit. It is a slow, cumulative benefit, not dramatic, but real and measurable over time. Third, millet has a high magnesium content. Magnesium is a natural calcium antagonist in the vessel wall. It competes with calcium at the cellular level and relaxes smooth muscle tissue, which reduces vascular tone and lowers blood pressure. Magnesium deficiency is one of the most widespread and quietly underdiagnosed conditions in adults over 40. Most people with it have never been told they have it because standard blood panels often do not reflect tissue magnesium levels accurately. Recipe: millet porridge with lemon and sea buckthorn. Sea buckthorn is a small orange berry increasingly available in health food stores and some larger supermarkets. Take 100 grams of millet and rinse it 3 times under cold water. This step is non-negotiable. It removes the bitter compounds from the outer grain. Bring 250 milliliters of water to a boil, add the millet, and cook over medium heat for 15 minutes. Add 100 milliliters of milk and cook another 10 minutes until fully soft. Into the finished warm porridge, squeeze the juice of half a lemon. Add 1 teaspoon of sea buckthorn oil or a small handful of the fresh or frozen berries and sprinkle with 1 teaspoon of ground flaxseed. Let us unpack each addition separately. Lemon juice creates a mild acidic environment in the intestine and delivers vitamin C, one of the most potent antioxidants your body uses. And remember, the danger is not cholesterol itself, it is oxidized cholesterol. Vitamin C intercepts that oxidation. Sea buckthorn oil is one of the richest natural sources of fat-soluble vitamin E and a broad spectrum of omega fatty acids. Vitamin E provides direct protection to the endothelium against oxidative damage. It works right at the vessel wall surface. Ground flaxseed contributes additional soluble fiber and omega-3 fatty acids. Just 3 grams of flaxseed adds roughly 1 more gram of soluble fiber on top of what the millet already provides. The 5th grain, the one I mentioned at the very start, pearled barley. Most people dislike it. It takes a long time to cook. It has an unusual texture that is hard to describe, but pearled barley is the most powerful grain for the blood vessels of the brain. And it is specifically pearled barley that Japanese physicians recommend to elderly patients for the prevention of dementia and memory decline. Here is the logic. The brain consumes approximately 20% of all the oxygen and glucose used by your body, even though it accounts for only about 2% of body weight. It runs entirely on adequate blood supply. Any reduction in blood flow through the cerebral vessels, the arteries and capillaries of the brain, results in cognitive impairment, declining memory, reduced concentration, slowed processing speed. This is not a distant risk. This is a direct, linear relationship between vascular health and cognitive sharpness in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. Pearled barley contains lysine, an essential amino acid. Essential means your body cannot synthesize it on its own. It must come from food. Lysine is one of the primary building blocks for collagen synthesis. Collagen forms the structural scaffold of vessel walls, especially the delicate capillaries that supply brain tissue. Without sufficient lysine intake, those capillaries become fragile, prone to microtears. And microtears, as you now know, are exactly where plaque formation begins. The brain is particularly vulnerable to this because its capillaries are among the finest in the body. Pearled barley is also rich in selenium and vitamin E. Both are powerful antioxidants. Free radicals, the unstable, electron-hungry molecules generated by inflammation, metabolic stress, and environmental exposure, attack vessel walls, brain cells, and cholesterol molecules directly. This sustained attack is called oxidative stress. Pearl barley contains a complex of compounds that research has shown to protect against chronic disease through combined antioxidant and anti-inflammatory mechanisms. Recipe: pearled barley with ginger and cinnamon. Take 100 grams of pearled barley. The evening before, rinse it and soak it in cold water for 8 to 12 hours. This step is mandatory. Without soaking, pearled barley takes a very long time to cook and retains a tough texture even after extended cooking. In the morning, drain the water, transfer the grain to a pot, and add 300 milliliters, about 1 1/4 cups, of boiling water. Cook over medium heat for 30 to 40 minutes until fully soft. Into the finished porridge, stir 1 teaspoon of freshly grated ginger and a pinch of cinnamon. Do not cook the ginger, add it to the finished dish. Heat degrades a portion of its active compounds. Why these two specifically? Ginger contains gingerols and shogols, compounds that improve blood rheology, which means they affect the viscosity and flow characteristics of blood. Blood with optimal viscosity moves more freely through the fine capillaries of the brain and is less prone to forming microclots. Ginger also has well-documented anti-inflammatory properties in its own right. Cinnamon reduces postprandial blood sugar, that is, the spike in glucose that occurs after eating, and as we established early in this video, stable blood sugar equals less endothelial damage. Less endothelial damage equals fewer plaque formation sites. The whole chain connects. Now here's something that flows directly from everything we have covered, and it is clinically important. The rate at which atherosclerotic plaques form and the degree to which dietary changes can push back against them is strongly tied to age. Before 40, the endothelium regenerates relatively quickly, and moderate nutritional deficiencies do not necessarily compound into serious disease. After 45, collagen synthesis slows, hormonal profiles shift, and plaque progression accelerates meaningfully. After 60, the body's antioxidant defense systems begin to lose efficiency. In adults over 65, atherosclerosis of the cerebral vessels, the arteries feeding the brain, is found 3 to 4 times more frequently than in people at 40. The same food in the same person has a different level of impact depending on where they are in that timeline. How old are you? Drop your age in the comments. I want to see exactly which age groups are watching. It will directly shape which topics I cover next and at what depth. Here's what you do now. 1. Understand that cholesterol is not your enemy. Chronic inflammation and vessel damage are. 2. Start rotating 2 to 3 of these grains into your weekly meals on a consistent basis. You do not need all 5 every week. Regularity is the mechanism. The benefits are cumulative. Most people notice a subjective difference in energy and digestion within about a month. Blood work changes tend to show up around the 3-month mark. 3. Use the specific recipes as written, not as loose inspiration. The added ingredients, cinnamon, black pepper, kefir, live culture yogurt, sea buckthorn oil, ginger, are not garnishes. They are functional components with documented mechanisms. 4. If you are currently taking a statin, that is a prescription medication to lower cholesterol, do not stop it on the basis of anything in this video. Nutrition works alongside medical treatment, not instead of it. Discuss any dietary changes with your physician. 15 years of seeing patients has taught me one thing clearly. The information that actually moves the needle on your health is rarely the information you receive during a 7-minute appointment. There is no billing code for a conversation about buckwheat. Subscribe to Dr. Waterling, leave a like, and help this channel reach 1,000 subscribers. The healthcare system is not designed to keep you well. It is designed to keep you coming back. I am designed for the other thing.